Everett's gonna get you. Run, run. Everett's gonna get you. Run.
Hello, my little Luxxes. This is another episode of luxxxycharms, and I'm your host, Cosplayer Charsie Luxxx, and welcome for another movie review episode. And today I will be talking about Dawn of the Beast. And hello again, and welcome back for another luxxxycharms episode. And today I am not only kind of announcing again, because I barely made an announcement for the month of September's theme, I am doing Dead Month. And Dead Month is to be for basically Bigfoot season, and the idea of where I came up with doing Dead Month actually stems from this movie, Dawn of the Beast. Now, this is a very recent film. This one is from 2021, so very, very recent. So obviously, right away, I'm going to start off with my usual and saying, hey, spoiler alerts and viewer discretion advised, but a huge spoiler alert for this one because of the fact that this film is so recent and from 2021. I have to forgive my throat. I'm sitting here now with my water because I had originally brought over my wonderful coffee, which is an apple cider crisp cinnamon type of coffee, but I think the cinnamon is making my throat very scratchy. So now I just sound funny, so this will be a very interesting episode, and we'll see if I lose my voice or not. So who knew that the cinnamon was going to end up doing that, but anyway, back to on point. So, spoiler alert, this film can be found on a lot of different platforms, but one of the main ones that I had watched it from was you can watch it for free on Tubi. So please be forewarned if you do not like spoilers. Spoiler alert, and viewer discretion advised. A part of my spoiler alerts, I also want to let you know that since this film is so recent for 2021, I really encourage that you go and watch the film before you listen to me talk about it, because I'm going to go very in-depth with this one, and I'm going to reveal pretty much everything. So if you don't want the nitty-gritty of the story and don't like spoilers, you're definitely going to want to not watch this and go watch the film first. Welcome again, and please don't forget to like and to subscribe and to come join the Luxxxy family. And on here, I've been changing things up a little bit. Please come join me as I get distracted by everything around me, and this is going to be very different. This is the first time that I'm attempting to do this setup for my movie reviews. And I really liked doing this for my last Charsie chats. It was very laid back for me, very comfortable. And when I talk about my movie reviews, I want it to be feeling like you're sitting down with your best friend and you're just talking about these movies that you really like. But let's go ahead, get into this right away, or 2 minutes later, or however long this intro has been, and let's talk about Dawn of the Beast. And I'm going to do my typical new usual where I'm going to share the short plot summary. On Imdb, a group of graduate students get more than they bargained for while searching for the legendary Bigfoot. Not only is he real, but there's something far more evil lurking in the shadows. The Windigo. We will start off by talking about the cast and the crew of this film. You have Adrian Burke as Chris, Ariella Mastroianni as Isabel, Grant Shoemaker as Everett, Anna Shields as Lily, LeJohn Woods as Oz, Chris Simperman as Jake, Willard Morgan as Dr. Dennis Kasdan, Francesca Anderson as Marie, Roger M. Mayer as Cashier, Sean Malloy as Bigfoot, John McSchnore as the Creature, Director is Bruce Wemple, and writer is Anna Shields. And you should definitely recognize the name Anna Shields because she is the character Lily in this film. And as always, I apologize if I butchered any pronunciations of anyone's names in this film. And I also wanted to take note that Roger M. Mayer, the one who played the cashier in the film, he was also a producer on this film as well. Now, I only recently found this film, Dawn of the Beast, because of the fact that I had wanted to theme this entire month around Bigfoot, and I just was looking for different movies that could be possibly on Tubi, things that I hadn't seen before. I wanted to talk about a movie review for Monstrous, but I happened upon this one because when I was watching Monstrous, it had done suggestions for other Bigfoot films that were very similar and related to Monstrous. So I watched Dawn of the Beast for the first time, and nobody talks about this film. It's very recent, like I said, 2021. And the tagline in this film is, "The legends are real, and they kill." And when watching this film, I watched it with my buddy Brian on our movie watch group. Can't remember if anybody else had watched it with us. Omi might have jumped in at one point and had watched it with us. But I was very surprised by this one, and since nobody talks about it, I figured I'd start the conversation and bring this film up. And this one was not what I was expecting when I first was going into the film. So you open up right away with very quick events for the fact that a young couple is staying at this rental cabin, and we are introduced to these characters as Everett and Marie, and we discover that Everett and Marie had found this beautiful necklace out in the woods, and Marie puts it on and she decides that she wants to keep this beautiful necklace for herself.
What do you think we can get for it?
I want to keep it. So you pan to the next scene where strange things start happening around this house, and you start seeing creatures watching Everett while he's standing outside taking a smoke, and it just gets even more bizarre and eerie until the fact that both Everett and Marie get attacked by a strange creature, and it's Bigfoot. This big gigantic creature is attacking this couple, and it grabs Marie and it drags her away, and poor Everett is left just listening to poor Marie as she's out in the woods screaming for her life. So this film definitely starts off with a very dark note. Apologize if you can hear someone mowing outside. Fast forward to 10 years later, where you were introduced to 6 brand new characters, and they are all out there to stay in the cabin rental, but they are coming out here with their Professor Dennis Kasdan. They are out here for cryptozoology, so basically they study the supernatural, the unusual, the strange, and they are all out there to see if they can discover Bigfoot.
Our buddy here thinks we're gonna run into Mr. Sasquatch this weekend. You ever see anything?
That beast you're looking for. It's out there.
And what better to be out there in the field work, trying to see if you can discover any kind of indication that Bigfoot exists and is there. You have 3 grad students, Isabel, Jake, and Lily. And Isabel also brought her boyfriend Chris along for the trip. And then you have the grad student TA, Oz, who works for Professor Kasdan. And they are all out there exploring, but before they head out to the cabin, obviously you have to be introduced to the locals. And while they're in this tiny little shop trying to buy supplies and that, and Oz obviously is interested in the local legends of Bigfoot and everything, but all the locals just kind of warn them that you guys are here at the worst time possible, that this is the time known as the dead month. Of course, none of these college students take any warning from these locals because you know how young adults are. They know what's best. Why would we ever listen to the older generation when they are trying to heed warning? But anyway, so then you move into where they've settled at the cabin and everything, and they finally start hiking out in the woods. Well, the typical norm when they're out exploring, they all get separated and start going their own way, because why would you ever stay together as a group?
No, don't like that.
And you have Lily, who ends up going off and she's taking pictures, because she had even explained to Chris earlier that she was only there because she was told that this class was an easy A.
What's your major?
Photojournalism.
Oh. Huh.
We're all just trying to finish up our masters. Everyone said this class was an easy A, so...
But she happens upon and finds Everett out in the woods. And of course, Everett now is changed. He's got a patch over his eye, the one that got damaged at the beginning of the film when he was attacked. And he looks very beat up, and he doesn't talk like a normal person anymore. Obviously, he's been through a rough time in that, but he keeps poking questions at Lily and trying to find out, hey, where are you guys staying at? Lily, obviously seeing this as a red flag, doesn't tell him any indications of where they're staying at, and just walks away from him.
Where y'all staying?
A cabin.
Where at?
The woods.
And you also have Oz, Isabel, and Jake, who wander off and start doing their own thing and decide that they're not going to stay on the trail anymore. So when they wandered off the trail, they actually tripped over and happened to find a dead body. Well, we quickly realize as the audience that this dead body is clearly Marie, because the necklace that she had put on at the beginning of the film is still on her decaying skeleton. Well, Isabel, very intrigued with this necklace, decides to take this and she pockets it. Now, Jake and Isabel, obviously thrown off by this dead body, wants to tell the professor right away. Well, Oz tells them, hey, this has been a body that's been here for quite a bit of time, since it takes about 8 to 10 years for a body to decompose, and this is clearly a skeleton. So he said, let's just go through this weekend and we'll let the locals know when we're leaving, because he's like, let's not cut this trip short. I'd rather be doing field work here.
It takes 8 to 12 years for a body to decompose.
Great tip. You should be a doctor. All right, let's go.
Guys, there's no rush to report this. I mean, whoever this was, they've been missing for a very long time.
Jake and Isabel decide to agree with him, and they decide to keep it a secret. So we're getting all these red flags kind of happening over and over again, and you even have poor Chris, who is there for his girlfriend Isabel, but you can clearly tell that Isabel has no interest in Chris. Like, she's only using him because he's, in her eyes, a better boyfriend than what her last boyfriend was, because her last boyfriend was this bad boy that never listened to her, and Chris was this puppy that listened to her every word, but you can clearly tell she's not interested in this poor guy. Chris, clearly, is our main protagonist, and that he's the person that your story is kind of surrounded around, and he's not in this class, but he tagged along to spend time with his girlfriend. In his conversations with Lily, we find out that Isabel really isn't that nice of a person, and that Chris and her have only been together for 2 months. And Lily keeps trying to warn Chris about this, but of course he doesn't want to listen to her. So we continue forward with this movie, and you get to the part where they're all hanging out in the house, and while they're all sitting around, Isabel is trying to work on some things on her computer, but she discovers that there's just no service possible here at this rental cabin. So she decides she's going to drive back into town so that she can get some of her work done. So she heads out while the professor decides that he's going to tag along with her. They leave in her car. Well, while they are on their trip on the road to head to the shop or wherever they can go until they have service on their phones, back at the cabin, you have Lily, who decides that she's going to take a shower, and then you have Jake, who decides he's just going to go to bed, and Oz just kind of does his own thing. Well, Chris decides he's going to just sit around and read, because he did try to leave with Isabel, but she brushed him off and told him, no, stay, get to know everybody. but everybody kind of just abandoned poor Chris, so he's like, okay, I guess I'll do some reading. Big horror fans out there, we all know, if you discover the creepy book on the bookshelf, especially in a random cabin in the woods, we do not read from the creepy book. But I don't think Chris ever got that fair warning, because obviously he opens and starts reading out of this creepy diary journal. But obviously this scene makes me think of the Evil Dead when they're in a cabin in the middle of the woods and they discover this creepy book and read from it. Nothing good comes from reading from a very evil looking book. Duh. Or from, like, The Ring, why would you be in some random cabin and decide it's a good idea to put a homemade VHS tape and watch it? But anyway, I digress. So you continue on from there. Chris starts discovering in this journal that it's talking about the Windigo, and that it's giving little hints and clues inside this journal about the situation and what's kind of happening. So we continue on. Well, poor Lily, while she's trying to take her shower, she's actually kidnapped by Everett. And Everett, we find out, for the past 10 years, has been coming out and spending the entire dead month out basically hunting for Bigfoot, because in his mind it was Bigfoot that had killed his girlfriend. I can't remember if she was a girlfriend or a wife. He believed that it was Bigfoot who had killed Marie, because that day in the woods he saw Bigfoot. Since he's been out there trying to catch this Bigfoot in the act, but at some point Everett started kind of becoming the monster himself, because he was literally using people and kidnapping these poor people, and he was using them as bait to try and catch Bigfoot. In the end, Everett started taking on his own dark side, and in the end, when is it to the point where you don't realize that you yourself has turned into the monster? So for 10 years he's been doing this, and he's trying to use Lily as bait. And this is when poor Lily discovers that there's another dead body there, that he's already tried to use somebody else as bait. So Everett isn't a good guy. Not anymore anyways. He's flat out said that he's been coming out here for the past 10 years for dead month trying to catch this Bigfoot, but he has had absolutely no luck. Well, as it would happen, that Isabel and the professor, as they were driving into town, they run into some very strange things and some strange creatures, and they are run off the road, and the professor is captured and he is killed. Well, Isabel, in that moment, from what we could tell, it looked like she had been killed too, but she later wanders back to the cabin where Jake and Oz discover her.
Hey, you guys seen Dennis? I realize we gotta change something in the schedule.
Is you okay? Look at me. Where's my car?
Well, unbeknownst to them, at the same time, Chris, the following night, while he was outside trying to go to the bathroom, he was kidnapped by Bigfoot. So when they discover Isabel and the weird things going on with her, they hear screams in the woods. Well, they go and they find Chris. Well, in doing so, they decide that they need to go and find the professor, even though Isabel kept telling him that he was dead. And sure enough, they find the professor, and he is indeed dead.
Is this a dead man, Doctor? Very dead, Mr. Spock.
So then they know that they don't have a vehicle because Jake's vehicle ran into a tree, and I believe that was the only vehicle that they had. Well, then they were confused and worried about what happened to Lily with all this weird stuff going on, and she is gone, and they're like, there's no vehicle. There's no possible way she could have just left and walked how many miles? I think they said like 16 miles to the next town. So the group decides that they're just going to hang out around the cabin. So that's when Chris lets Oz know that he had found this strange journal in the bookshelf. And when he shows it to Oz, Oz immediately recognizes and knows that this is a journal about the Windigo.
The Wendigo? It's this creature that...
It's cannibalistic beast that preys on the selfish. Yeah, I know.
And the Wendigo are these strange cannibalistic creatures. Supposedly were being sighted in this woods just about as often as people think they have sighted Bigfoot. Oz flat out says that he was upset with the professor because he had gone to the professor letting him know, hey, I've heard rumors about the Wendigo. Are we sure we really want to go out to this area just in case something more dangerous is out there besides a Bigfoot? Well, the professor brushed him off and didn't say anything. And even though at one point Oz even tried to bring up and let the professor know about the dead decomposing body that they had found, or I guess skeleton, but once again, the professor just brushed him off again. So we're finding out pretty quickly, and especially from the little hints that are showing in the journal, that we can kind of piece together what's been going on. It progresses and you find out that Isabel indeed was actually technically dead, undead at this moment, and she was turning into a Wendigo ghoul type creature. And she begins attacking all of her friends and everybody that is in the cabin. So poor Chris, wanting to help his girlfriend, not realizing that she has turned into this evil creature, obviously wants to help his girlfriend. Well, then you have the side story still going on at the same time, that Lily's been kidnapped by Everett and that he's placed her to be bait. But while he is out there thinking that he's hunting Bigfoot, he is actually in turn attacked by the Wendigo, and he's killed by them. Well, Lily manages to cut herself free and to run away. And Lily is probably one of the biggest badasses in the movie. She's probably my favorite character. Now, I know a lot of people would probably feel like Lily's a very self-centered character, but in the end, she really, really does care about other people around her. She just really saw Isabel for the type of person she was, and she saw the rest of them as very self-centered people, and that she knew in the long run that they would have abandoned her if anything had happened to them. So Lily was viewing it from a standpoint of the fact that she had been around these people long enough, she knew them, and she kept trying to reassure and tell Chris that he had no idea who these people were, including Isabel. And she starts going back to the cabin. Well, when she gets to the cabin, she discovers Chris and tells him, hey, we need to go. We need to leave now. This is dangerous. Well, Chris, of course, wants to go and find his girlfriend. And Lily, in the process of trying to tell him, hey, just leave, we need to go, they would abandon us too, she flat out even says, she goes, I know you probably think I'm an asshole for thinking this, and he's like, you're right, I do think you're an asshole. And he's like, I'm gonna go look for them and at least give them a fair chance.
5 more minutes, then I'm gone, whether you come or not.
You're right. I do think you're an asshole.
Lily comes to her senses and she's like, yeah, he's right. So in turn, they both end up going and looking for the others. Well, obviously, both Oz and Jake have already been killed by Isabel, and Isabel has already been turned, and several of the other Windigo have already showed up around this cabin. So at this process is when both Chris and Lily decide that they need to run away. Well, they're being chased down by these Windigo. Well, unfortunately, the Windigo catch up to them, and they end up attacking and killing poor Lily. So it's at those final moments where Chris himself thinks that it is the end. He's being surrounded by the Windigo. He just lost Lily, and he thinks he's just going to fight till the bitter end until he's dead. Well, then all of a sudden, the Windigo just start kind of like backing away from him for fear and everything. Well, come to find out, Bigfoot was standing behind Chris. Then you have a moment where it becomes the Windigo versus Bigfoot, and it's this big epic fight between all these creatures and Bigfoot. That was a very, very fun episode. That was a very fun epic fight to watch for this horror film. obviously, Chris thinks that he's finally in the clear, and he goes to leave, and he was trying to do what Lily's original plan was to go and find Everett so that they could find the keys and then get to his truck and leave. So Chris ends up doing this, and he starts heading for the truck. Well, this is when it starts turning into the sequence of many, many, many endings for this film. And so you have the epic fight between the Windigo and Bigfoot, and when Chris gets to the truck and decides that he's finally gonna leave is when Isabel shows up. So then you have a fight between Chris and Isabel until Chris is able to set her on fire and is able to escape her. And then you come to the next part, which poor Chris is trying to start this truck and something is wrong with it. So he decides he's just gonna start walking. Well, as soon as he walks away from the truck, this truck just randomly explodes. I don't know if the fire from Isabel just set the truck on fire, if it was leaking gas or something. I don't know, it's not explained. This truck just explodes. Because of the explosion, a ghoul, zombie, undead Windigo version of Everett shows up and decides to confront Chris and is like, did you blow up my truck, basically? And gets in this confrontation with Chris and then talks about the realization that he had, that this whole entire time for the 10 years he's been showing up to try and kill Bigfoot, he didn't realize that all along he should have been hunting the Windigo. And the reason why the last 10 years he never saw any of these creatures was because it all was surrounded by this stone, this rock or necklace, the thing that Marie and him had found earlier. And the reason why the Windigo showed up again was because Isabel had taken the stone and had it on her. So it started the whole cycle over again. So everything has to do with these sacrifices that are around this stone. Everett had been killing all these poor people and using them as bait, and had turned into a terrible monster himself. And here Bigfoot was the good guy. Bigfoot was actually trying to warn people and protect people from the Windigo and these terrible creatures. And now Everett had become the creature himself, the thing that killed Marie. So it's kind of a nice little ploy and play on the fact of who's the real monster. You're thinking the whole time it's one thing, and come to find out it's a totally different situation. And Everett essentially becomes the bad guy. And you get this phenomenal song out of Everett, and you get the run, run, Everett's gonna get you. Run, run, Everett's gonna chase you.
Run, run, Everett's gonna get you. Run, run, Everett's gonna get you.
And it's just, it's a fun scene. So then you have that fight between Chris and Everett. It's a very quick fight though. I think it's because of the fact that you're supposed to realize that Chris has had enough and he's just fucking done.
Fuck this shit, I'm out.
Well, then you have Chris discovering a beautiful little bird. I think it was a chickadee. And he's excited because that's all he wanted to do at the beginning of the film, was to walk around the woods with everyone. He just wanted to bird watch. And then the final actual ending is that you have the cashier store owner from the beginning of the film driving out there, and he discovers Chris. So he picks up Chris. He makes this little joke while Chris is completely covered in gunk and mud and blood, and you just can tell he's been through hell. And this store owner decides he's gonna make the joke and go, dead month.
Dead month?
Ends from there as Chris and this guy are driving away from the chaos behind them. Obviously, I went very into detail about talking about this film. That's why my big spoiler alert, because of the fact, like I said, this is a recent film. So I just really wanted to go in depth with this one because of the fact of how much I enjoyed this film, and it's a B-rated film, but way more effort was put into this film and creativity that I think it deserves to be talked about more. Let's get into the few facts that I did find on this film. And I'm just going to read it straight from the IMDb trivia page, and also kind of like give a little bit more thoughts of it on my own. The opening pre-credits sequence was shot prior to the rest of the film. I know of another film that was like that, and that was the very famous film Scream, that the scene with Drew Barrymore was pre-filmed like months in advance. And that opening scene in Scream is what they used to get people interested in doing this film and the ideas for it. So that was actually filmed quite a bit of time before that. So I'm wondering if this one was done in the same way, is that this one was pre-filmed and kind of like showing the idea of, hey, this is what we want to do. But of course it doesn't tell us exactly like how much further pre-filmed this was. But I just thought it was funny when I read that and immediately thought of Scream and the fact that they had done the exact same thing.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know.
And the next fact is main antagonist is Windigo, an evil spirit that, according to a legend, once was a man but turned into a monster after having no other choice but cannibalism. Bigfoot here is the good guy, which I also had stated. So I love the fact that this is not a typical Bigfoot film, that you also have the Windigo. And the Windigo legend, especially since I live in the same area that this was supposed to be taking place, that the legends of the Windigo are exactly like in detail, is the fact that it's a person who has wandered off the trail and resorts to cannibalism to try and survive and to live, and it turns them into a monster. And it immediately made me think of that old TV show called Fear Itself. And I had to look up the episode, which I believe it was season 1, episode 8, and it was the one that was Skin and Bones. And that was the one, in fact, I probably could find it and just read off the synopsis for it. And I was gonna say, if you can find a way to watch Fear Itself, the entire show is really amazing. But every episode is a different story done by a different writer. So very similar to Creepshow, but it's very well done. And the very first one that I ever watched was Skin and Bones, and that freaked me the hell out. And that's when I started watching all the episodes in that. Right here, I was right. So it's season 1, episode 8, Skin and Bones. And it's when rancher Grady Ugland returns home to his family after being lost in the forest for a number of days. His family realize he's not quite himself. And that was the exact same premises that I had just read on the trivia, was the idea that him and his buddies were out on a hunting trip, they got completely lost, and they ended up in this cave, and I think it was even in the middle of the winter time, so it was very dangerous. Well, they decided that they ate their horses trying to survive, and that obviously they ran out of food, the horses were gone, they started turning on themselves. And Everett killed his own hunting friends and started eating them. And because of this, he turned into a Wendigo. So when he returned back to his family, he now was this cannibalistic Wendigo and was going to attack his own family. So if you have a chance to watch that, I definitely suggest that one too. But yeah, that was the only facts that I had on this movie, but I had also kind of talked about it in the film as well, was the fact of thinking of the book and the journal that Chris had found made me think of other horror movies where they do the exact same thing, like in The Ring when she finds the VHS, but in Evil Dead we also have that book. You definitely do not read from it.
It's just a book. No harm ever came from reading a book.
So I never did really get into the fact of what my cosplay is today. It doesn't look like I'm in cosplay, but I'm actually cosplaying my favorite character from the film, and I'm inspired by Lily's character, who was done by Anna Shields, who's also the writer of the film. While doing research on this one, and I had discovered when I watched Monstrous and then watched Dawn of the Beast with my friend Brian, that I'm like, this is the same girl that's in Monstrous, one of the main characters. Well, it's Anna Shields. When doing my research, I'm like, wait, Anna Shields is also a writer for Dawn of the Beast. So I piqued my curiosity, and sure enough, looking at Monstrous, Anna Shields is also the writer of that film. Well, then it's the same director for both films as well, for Monstrous and Dawn of the Beast. My brain is just... So Bruce Wemple is the director for both Monstrous and Dawn of the Beast. So they've clearly hit along and have done several films together, but not a lot of films. That's why I wanted to talk about this film, as recommendations and talking about these films that are underrated and that I like. I really like this film. This, for a B-rated film, was done very, very well. And just seeing the progression of how Anna Shields is doing in her writing, she's progressing and it's getting better and better, because seeing for what she had done for Monstrous compared to Dawn of the Beast, she's got a lot of ideas, and they're there to the point where in the end of Dawn of the Beast, the ending gets busy. Like, there's a lot happening. And like I said, I make the joke and thinking that this is the ending of many endings. Like, there's 5 different endings for this film. I feel that since this film was labeled as horror and mystery, Anna Shields has a knack for comedy that I think she should push into more and explore more, because it was heading there at the end of this film. And that humor was there, especially between Chris and Everett in that scene, and then even the fight between Chris and Isabel. Like, the humor was there. And I'm wondering if Anna, like, explored a little bit more of pushing this dark humor, this horror comedy idea. I think she'd be on a gold mine, because her writing is excellent. Like, the ideas between this Bigfoot and Windigo, that it keeps you on your toes and you're guessing. And there's so much beautiful foreshadowing in this film, and the symbolism that they use for the cinematography is just beautifully done. And for a B-rated horror film, low budget, this was done phenomenally well. So I recommend this film. Now, don't go into it expecting a blockbuster film. Usually when I'm talking about films, it's hardly ever the blockbuster film. I did just recently talk about Jaws, but Jaws is on a level of its own, we all know that. But this one definitely is up there for being one of my favorite Bigfoot films now. And I have a huge appreciation for Anna Shields as a writer, as an actress. I mean, obviously, I'm cosplaying her character Lily as of right now, but it's also kind of funny because this is typically how I would dress normally anyway. So it's just very comfortable for me to be like this. But yeah, I definitely recommend this film, and especially this time of year is the perfect time. And if you can watch it and get in the mood for camping and that, it's a fun, very campy, it feels like a campy film. So I don't know, I think we'll be talking about this one a lot more in the future, and I think we will be talking a lot more about Anna Shields as well, because like I said, she's developing and growing, and she's got amazing ideas, and it's just she's getting that knack and slowly growing into her style, and I really think she should explore a little bit more on the horror comedy side, especially for the epic fight that they had between Bigfoot and the Wendigo. Like, I can just imagine if this film was done in a similar way between like Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. And I mean, obviously we talk about all these films and relating to each other and everything, but yeah, I was really impressed with this film, and I feel like more people should be watching it, talking about it. And you know me, I love a good underdog horror movie story, and this is definitely one of them. And Lily was an epic character, and Anna Shields found a way to talk about a female character where she wasn't worried about what anybody else was doing. She was going to protect herself, and she knew what she was thinking and doing, and she was able to escape on her own. She wasn't the typical damsel in distress. She actually was the badass that came to go and get Chris. But yes, she kind of had an asshole side, but I like that character development to where Chris kind of had to be her conscience and say, yeah, I do think you're an asshole. We should be helping the others. You know them more than me. And in the long run, she did end up doing the right thing. It's just unfortunate that her character is killed off. Chris is our main protagonist, and he's got a very nice story arc himself. I was reading a lot of reviews where people were like, oh, the acting was mediocre and blah blah blah. I don't agree with that, because I really did like Oz's character as well, and I don't know, I think I can see myself in him where he's in this Bigfoot shop and he's excited to talk about and especially talk to the locals, and all the grad students are just like, oh, whatever, and rolling their eyes and disinterested, where it's like, I can relate with Oz, where it's like, God, I'm so excited and I want to talk to the locals and I want to know what they know, and that the other grad students are just these, oh, we're just here for an easy A, and it's like, oh man, that sucks. So final thoughts, yes, I really like this film. I highly recommend it. I would love to know your guys' thoughts on it, and it's a fun film, and it's getting there to where it's like, I can see this film in so many different ways. And it's just funny reading reviews where people are like, it was just so busy at the end and it lost me. And I'm like, how did it lose you? I make the joke, it's the movie with the many endings. They just threw all their alternate endings in there at the same time. And you get Everett's fun song. How can you go wrong with that? It's on par for making me think of Freddy's songs. Freddy Krueger, if you're not sure what I was talking about. Actually, I remembered now that one of the reviews had their title as an honest effort, but too much going on. Yeah, if it's summed down, then yes, okay, fine. But I also read several other ones where they're like good low budget creature feature, and other ones like a diamond in the rough, and we're all gonna have different opinions of this film. And if you're not a die-hard horror fan, like, I don't think that you would get into a film like this. But anyway, I'm doing my typical, where I am rambling on and on about a film that I want other people to appreciate and to like. And oh, I got my camera. That is a prop. That is specifically sat there, and if you see the film, you'll understand exactly why Lily's character has the camera. But anyway, yay, brain all over the place. I can talk on and on and on about this film. So please let me know in the comments below, what are your thoughts and opinions of this film? Please give it a chance if you have not seen it. If you have seen it and you dislike it, please let me know why you dislike it. I just like having these conversations to kind of get different points of views of the film. And as always, thank you so much for joining me here on another Luxxxy Charms, and joining me for Dead Month, since we are celebrating Bigfoot season, and we are just about to hit the month of fall. We are just about to hit fall season, so things are warm for me today. If you can't tell by my very rosy cheeks right now. But we are going to start coming into the cooler season here pretty soon. I am already watching the leaves change colors. And if you would like to continue following me on my other social medias as well, please follow my Twitter or my Blue Sky for Charsie Luxxx with 3 X's. Or you can follow me on my Instagram or my Threads for Charsie87. I am the afterlife of the party, and I would love for you to come and join me here in the afterlife of the party. And to always remember to slay, subscribe, like, and always be yourself. Until next time, my little Luxxes, I hope you have a Luxxy Charms kind of day. Bye! I was always going to talk about the horror film. I was almost said some mysterious. That is not correct. The legends are real, and they kill. As I lose my voice again. We're introduced to them. Yay for loud noises. I found this beautiful necklace. And pour effort to 6 new characters. Not dead alive. Well then that's when Chris lets odds and he just makes this little joke. Well, joke. Once was a man but turned into a monster after that. And I keep wanting to say, yes, Evil Dead is right. I almost said Dead Alive. Oh, you're a big bee. And I also wanted to end this out real quick by just kind of letting you know that pretty soon my bloopers and outtakes are going to be an exclusive item on my Patreon that is coming up here soon. Hope to see you there. Bye!